When John Collier was a child, his house was more like a battle zone than it was a home.
My father had a background of violence. He was a lot of things. He abused alcohol, drugs, he was a womanizer, and he pretty much terrorized our home.
As John grew, so did his hatred and anger toward his father. He stayed in trouble at school and twice ran away from home.
There was always that little boy in me that loved my dad, and then there was that other side of me that started to hate him and never want to be anything like he was.
His parents eventually divorced and he lived with his mom. While she loved her son, she couldn't handle him.
I didn't realize that John had so much anger inside of him. I know that he liked to kind of fight and stuff like that, you know. Well, then John started getting in trouble.
One time when John tried to run away, he was picked up by police. But the officer that brought him home left a lasting impression on the young boy. John saw something in this stranger that he never saw in his dad.
That police officer actually seemed to care about me or take an interest in me. And when he did, I wanted to be like him. I saw him as the hero. And so that's something I wanted to pursue. I wanted to pursue a career in law enforcement.
After college, John became an Indiana state trooper. During this time, his dad was in and out of prison. His mom, on the other hand, had become a Christian and reached out to her son.
I was so proud of him, so very, very proud of him, becoming a state trooper. But right down deep in my heart, I wanted John to know Jesus. I wanted John to have a personal relationship with the Lord.
But John wasn't interested in his mother's faith. His main focus was his career as a state trooper, where his service was exemplary.
I had received a lot of awards from the superintendent. I had been assigned to the governor's detail. So it was like everything I did was to basically just credit myself, pat myself on the back.
But after a heated dispute with a supervisor, the model officer found that the rebellion and anger he had as a child was still there.
Something kind of rose up inside of me, something I couldn't quite understand and I couldn't control. I became like a rogue cop, just kind of doing my own thing. And as I started using drugs more and more too, people that I would stop on the highway, if they had drugs in their possession, instead of arresting them like I had done in the past, I would take their drugs. And if they had money, I would take that and I would say, hit the road.
One day, his mother got a visit from the police. John was under investigation.
They were telling me about John, and it was like, I couldn't believe it. I said, my son's a great state trooper. He's got all kinds of awards and everything, you know. You can't be talking about the same person.
John lost his badge and his respect for the law.
I had skills I learned as a police officer, and I used those skills to begin breaking into businesses, taverns and grocery stores, those types of businesses where I knew there would be cash on hand.
Eventually, he was caught breaking into a store and was sentenced to 18 months behind bars. After his release, John tried to stay clean, but the lure of fast money was too great. So one night he broke into another business. He cracked open the safe, and just as he was about to empty it out, the police showed up, and John ran.
They chased me probably for 30 minutes or so, and they caught up to me. And then I knew it was over for me.
As a repeat offender, John was given 8 to 15 years. His mother just couldn't take it anymore.
The first time you say, I forgive. The second time, I was very adamant about not wanting him in my life ever again. As far as I was concerned, I didn't have a son anymore.
I felt pretty much rejected by the whole world at that time, and I just wanted my life to be over.
A prison chaplain began visiting John, sharing the message of God's love and forgiveness of sins. That reminded John of his mom's words.
And I remember what she had told me about the Lord and how He loved me and how He had a life for me. I'd been in jail about 4 months, and I gave my life to Jesus Christ. And I just decided that it was time for me to turn my life over to Him and put my life in His hands.
His mother knew he needed her, but she couldn't forgive him.
I said, I'm not going. I don't want anything to do with them. I was very adamant about that. And the Lord spoke to me, and He said, He is flesh of your flesh and bone of your bone, and to deny Him is to deny me.
She came to see me sometime later, and we began to rebuild a new relationship. But that new relationship was formed it developed and grew out of a common bond, and that became Christ.
John was released from prison after 8 years. By then, his father was on his deathbed. John went to him with a message.
I said, Dad, I'm here because God sent me to see you. I said, Dad, if I die today, I know where I'm going. If you died today, I want you to know where you're going. And for that first time in my life, I prayed with my father, and he accepted Christ. He received Christ that day. And after that day, God used me to disciple my father up till the day he died.
John started an outreach ministry to prisoners. He's also married to Lori. John knows that his life has been changed by the faithfulness of God and a praying mother.
It took several years for this mother to continue to pray. But John is where he's at now. He's preaching, he's teaching, he's, praise God, wonderful things have happened in his life.
I'm so grateful that God has always been there for me through the good and the bad. One thing I can honestly say is that my best day without Jesus was never as good as my worst day with the Lord.